Truth behind Hollywood's perfect couple is about to shatter everything you thought you knew. Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds, the seemingly wholesome duo everyone adores. But behind their picture-perfect smiles, a web of manipulation, betrayal, and sabotage that's finally being exposed. From stolen scripts to ruined careers, it's clear their charming facade was nothing more than a carefully crafted lie. So grab your popcorn. You won't believe the shocking truths about the real Blake and Ryan that have been hiding in plain sight. Get ready to dive deep into the messy world of Hollywood's most toxic duo.
I did a film with an absolute idiot of a co-star. And this human being was being so insecure and angry because this person couldn't get the scenes out. And I think I was so vulnerable and uncomfortable that I got screamed at. And I would cry walking off set. This person would literally look at me in front of the whole crew and say, "You call yourself an actor, this is what I have to work with. What is this?" And I stood there just breaking. This happens. But because this person was number one on a call sheet, there was no safety net for me. So no one had my back. And I remember the next day I walked on and I said, "You get off my set." This is the first time I've ever spoken. I remember being so scared. And I looked at this person and I said, "You can F off. I'm going to work towards a tennis ball. I never want to see you again." And then I remember the producers came up and said, "You can't do this to number one. We have to let this person be on set." And I said, "But the person can turn around and I can act it to the back head."
Wow.
CBS is teaming up to expose the shocking truth about Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds. And the allegations are getting out of control. The drama is heating up as a growing number of cast and crew members from the Deadpool and Wolverine franchises are stepping forward to call out Ryan Reynolds for his heavy-handed control behind the scenes. These insiders say Reynolds bulldozed projects, making all the creative decisions with a toxic my way or the highway mentality. And fans? They're calling his behavior straight up shameful, a complete betrayal of Hollywood trust. But hold up, the story doesn't end there. Blake Lively's past is coming back to haunt her in a major way. Evidence is pouring in from all the way back in 2018, when she was only supposed to star in The Husband's Secret. But somehow she ended up getting credited as the executive producer. And that's just the start. Small creators from as far back as 2014 are speaking out, accusing Blake of exploiting their work and then ghosting them once she got what she wanted. Yikes. Let's be real. The perfect couple act between Blake and Ryan is totally done. At this point, I wouldn't even be shocked if Netflix dropped a true crime documentary about this toxic duo. And guess what? The never-ending feud with Justin Balan is just the tip of the iceberg. While this wholesome couple has been out here playing the role of Hollywood's dream team, they've allegedly been stealing people's work, making empty promises, and playing mind games like a toxic power couple. The funny husband and classy wife image? Yeah, that's officially broken. We've got receipts from creatives, industry, insiders, and even some of their so-called friends, all painting the same ugly picture. Y'all, there's a lot to unpack here. So grab your snacks, put your phone on Do Not Disturb, and let's dive into the story of Hollywood's nicest couple, who just might also be the biggest scammers in the game. And they've finally been exposed for it.
Lively's Instagram followers have dropped from 45.2 million to 44.9 million since the 17th of January.
You won't believe where Blake's highlight reel of bad decisions actually began. Let's hit rewind all the way back to 2014. Yeah, back when some of y'all were still glued to Paw Patrol. So, what did Blake do in 2014? Well, she decided to launch a painfully out-of-touch lifestyle site, selling ridiculously overpriced candles, awkwardly rustic home goods, and a bunch of random handmade stuff that, honestly, nobody asked for. It was like watching a crash and burn in real time. Cringy, but you just couldn't look away.
Whether or not the biggest failure of Blake Lively's career is not this moment. It's not even this moment. I'm not saying something because this movie got a 5 on Rotten Tomatoes out of 100. The biggest stumble in Blake's career was this, and I'm gonna need you to watch the first 10 seconds of the intro video. Just tell me, ballpark, what you think it's about, because you're not gonna guess it. Preserve was Blake Lively's attempt at a goop pit.
So if you ever tried to figure out what Preserve was all about, here's what we know. It was a brand, and that was pretty much the whole point. Literally, that was the main function of the company. a lifestyle brand that made money by selling overpriced hipster knickknacks to millennials. Simple, right? But guess what? It didn't even work. When Preserve flopped in 2015, Blake swore up and down it was because the brand was just too ahead of its time, launched way too early. But here's where the receipts come in, and they tell a completely different story. Word on the street? Blake was allegedly ordering samples from small creators under fake names, then copying their designs, bar for bar. And once she got what she wanted, she ghosted the original artists like they didn't even exist.
28-year-old actress will take down Preserve on October 9th. Blake launched the site in July 2014, but tells Vogue she doesn't want to continue with something that her and her team are, quote, not proud of. She goes on to explain, quote, "We launched the site before it was ready, and it never caught up to its original mission. It's not making a difference in people's lives, whether superficially or in a meaningful way."
And just when you thought Blake's sticky fingers were only snatching from Etsy shops, plot twist, we're talking scripts this time, and it's a whole new level of drama. Now, this next part? It's one of those Hollywood whispers that never quite made it to the gossip pages, so take it with a pinch of salt, but here's what's been buzzing around. Back in 2017, Blake was set to star in CBS's thriller, The Husband's Secret. The drama kicked off when an indie screenwriter popped up online, claiming her script had been passed around Hollywood years earlier, only to end up reworked into the movie Blake was now starring in. Major red flags, right? But here's the kicker. Big mainstream outlets like Deadline, Variety, and The Hollywood Reporter didn't touch the story. Why? Because back then, questioning A-listers was practically forbidden territory. And that might explain why this story is barely a blip on the radar. Now the crazy part? It isn't that far-fetched, especially after an old interview clip resurfaced where Blake brags about hijacking projects from directors and producers like it's some cute hobby. Talk about blunt. And just to double-check, I did a quick search. Not only was Blake the lead in The Husband's Secret, but she also conveniently gave herself the title of executive producer. If you know how Hollywood works, you already know. A lot of these celebs slap the executive producer title on their resume, not because they're actually doing the work, but because it looks fancy and boosts their portfolio. So, even without solid evidence, the pattern still fits. Blake's been known to eat off other people's plates, and that behavior isn't exactly new. Speaking of patterns, this whole taking over thing was so obvious on the set of Gossip Girl, where Blake's behind-the-scenes drama and manipulative tactics were a nightmare for her co-stars. And her first victim? Penn Badgley. The way Blake treated him on set was criminal. Before Penn even had a chance to settle in, Blake had already been running her mouth, convincing everyone to ice him out. Not because he did anything wrong, but because she just didn't like him. Imagine how long it took for the cast to realize Penn was actually cool. By then, the damage was already done. But get this. After all that drama, Blake and Penn ended up dating for 3 years. Then, in true Blake fashion, she dumped him and ran straight into Ryan Reynolds' arms.
One thing Blake Lively loves to do is tell on herself. So in a newly resurfaced interview from 2009 in Glamour magazine, Blake Lively opened up about how she tried to poison the cast of Gossip Girl against Penn Badgley. So we now know that she had Mr. Armie Hammerton fired from Gossip Girl after just 4 episodes, and now it appears she tried to do the same thing to Penn Badgley. Apparently she wasn't too pleased with Mr. Badgley when he was first cast. She didn't like the choice, so she tried to taint the rest of the cast against him, but once they realized what a good guy he was, she realized that she...
But hold up, here's where it gets even messier. After Blake married Ryan Reynolds and got all these producers practically worshipping the ground she walks on, Penn's career took a nosedive. Seriously, people in the industry low-key blacklisted him just because Blake wasn't cool with him anymore. Sound familiar? It should, because this is exactly what happened. With Justin Baldoni and the It Ends With Us cast after Justin got those spicy messages from Blake. People are convinced that Blake might have caught feelings for Baldoni and started acting like a bitter, jilted lover when Baldoni didn't feel the same. Just like with the Gossip Girl cast, it looks like It Ends With Us co-stars like Brandon, Senior, and even author Colleen Hoover have been distancing themselves from Blake lately. Why? Allegedly, they finally saw the whole picture and realized Blake had played them too. Ouch. Oh, and if you missed it, I've already got a whole video on Penn Badgley calling out Blake for literally ruining his career, so if you haven't, check that out, run, and catch it. But let's shift focus to other cast members. Because if you think Penn had it tough, just wait till you hear how Blake did Leighton Meester dirty. These two were out here pretending to be besties on screen. But behind the scenes, oil and water, their interactions were a whole mess.
Article recently saying that Leighton and I were frenemies. And it's
frenemies. Is that the new term, frenemies?
Yeah, we're friends, but we're also enemies. And it's they see our characters on the show, and they want that to be true in a sense. I think they want everybody's characters in real life to emulate that. And it's really strange because they always want to pit women against each other. You don't hear about like Penn and Chase hating each other and being jealous and competitive. So it's very silly. But you know, we all do get along very well. And
One thing about Blake, she will always pull the gender card. And guess what? According to the show's executive producer, Joshua Safran, Blake and Leighton were friends, but not exactly friendly. And you know what that means in Hollywood lingo? They couldn't stand each other. If you've ever watched their awkward press interviews, the tension was right there for everyone to see. It was like the unspoken elephant in the room, and trust me, everyone noticed. You could almost cut the tension with a knife. It was the kind of thing that made you wonder if they were secretly waiting for the cameras to stop rolling so they could throw down. The whole Gossip Girl vibe was all about drama, but little did we know, the real drama was going down behind the scenes.
Makes more sense when you're watching a show that there's not an obvious choice between good and evil. So she would seem like the obvious choice, but she's also got, you know, flaws as well. But I think I'm just brunette because of the books.
and everyone knows blondes are nicer anyway.
Over there.
A moment by me.
And then there's Armie Hammer, who played Gabriel on Gossip Girl. He subtly, but very clearly, hinted that Blake was the reason he left the show early. And honestly, at this point, who's surprised? It's like a pattern at this point, right? I mean, Blake's behind-the-scenes drama seems to have a track record. First it's Penn, then Leighton, and now Armie. It's becoming crystal clear that Blake has a knack for making life on set difficult for her co-stars. The fact that Armie subtly called her out just adds another layer to the whole mess. With all these people seemingly walking on eggshells around her, it's hard not to see a pattern of manipulation and control. At this point, it's almost like she's the puppet, master pulling all the strings behind the scenes, leaving a trail of drama and hurt feelings in her wake.
Let me just say, that was a tough show to film, and I didn't end up actually filming all of the episodes I was supposed to because it was such a tough film.
Really? Literally, you said, get me out of this.
It was also like, get him out of here. Yeah,
oh, really?
Yeah.
So it just literally was that. Whose love interest were you?
I was Blake Lively's love interest.
You were?
Yeah.
Okay, well
Sounds like she was the problem.
It sure does.